from our Contrarian takes, the bravest takes you'll find anywhere in football analysis. I'm Chris Spags, joined by the top DFS player in the world, the founder of Osmo.com, Alex Osmo Baker. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great. Recovering a little bit from a turkey overdose. Ready to get back into the action, talking some Week 12 here, and also discussing some other contrarian takes.
Yeah, Alex is very excited. We're going to do a little bit of Thanksgiving contrarian takes to lead off to get us warmed up here. But before I do that, let's introduce the third member of this show, who is really we're thankful to have here every week. Is senior editor for Roto World. This matchups column I can't hype enough, and I truly it's one of my favorite things to read every week. Evan Silva, how are you doing, Evan? How's Thanksgiving?
Good, man. It was awesome. Love playing DFS on Thanksgiving. You know, didn't have Amari Cooper, but it was still a profitable week. And I just I get really into it, you know, and I'm around my family and I'm yelling and stuff, and you know, it makes everyone uncomfortable. Why do you care so much that Chase Daniel overshot Tarek Cohen on that wheel route TD? You know, why do you care so much? Are you a Bears fan? Are you a Bears fan? No. He's on my fantasy team. You know.
Did you play Chase?
No. He wound up being a good play, didn't he?
Yeah, I played him. You almost scared me off him with your column where you called him pop gun armed.
Yeah, well, he is
hilarious and mean, but good take.
He is pop gun armed. I mean, he missed so many throws in the game. It's really a credit to their offensive scheme that they get dudes open like that. You know, I mean, he missed a lot of throws. I mean, he missed one to Anthony Miller that would have gone for a 60-yard touchdown. He missed the one to Cohen. I mean, and he wound up being a good play. Did he on a per dollar basis? He was probably the best quarterback play, wasn't he?
I think he was pretty close to Matt Ryan. I think they were both about 4 and change, almost 5x. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of opening value, it would have been nice if Michael Thomas paid off, because I think that's what Chase Daniel could have gotten you. Instead, Michael Thomas just watched Tommy Lee Lewis do his thing, as we've all expected, of course.
Did you guys have the experience where at 8 p.m. Traquan Smith is ruled out, and then you're like, all right, family, see you later. I got to go back to the office and redo all my lineups.
That's what Thanksgiving is all about, sharing time with your family and abandoning them to do better things. That's the hope. So, Alex, this is your baby. You wanted to talk about him up front. Is your time to shine. What's your contrarian Thanksgiving take you want to give people before we get to the NFL discussion?
Yeah, thanks. I thought it'd be cool to talk contrarian takes of some different topics today. This is the obvious one. My contrarian take is that Black Friday is the greatest American holiday.
Why is that? What is the rationale?
All right, so most holidays, it's about eating and drinking, getting your family together, having a good time. But there's always some dumb pretense, it's someone's birthday, like Jesus or something. Or it's in commemoration of a Native American dinner or something. But I've never seen anyone lined up overnight camping out to get turkey on Wednesday night. So I have to use that as evidence to support the fact that this unabashed Americanness, just all about the consumerism, just all about buying stuff for yourself and for Christmas. I think people love it. It's not really my thing, but it's so American, and there's so much excitement about it that I just feel like it's this icon in our culture.
I think that's fair. I wouldn't call it my favorite or the best holiday, but I do think the most American in terms of modern America. I think that's probably fair. We are a country of excess and wastefulness, and you get to save money while doing that. So that's the kind of a win-win.
The problem with calling it the best holiday, calling Black Friday the best holiday, is that it's not even a holiday. So it's just a day that has a nickname.
Yeah, really just to sell products. It's like a new Valentine's Day, really, where that just exists for that one purpose.
Would you guys ever go shopping on Black Friday?
Not in a million. I did when I was little with my parents, but not in a million years now. I'd honestly rather kill myself, just to be told.
I actually think they make it pretty easy because they open a lot of stores at 4 a.m. That's right around when the bars close in Chicago. So you can go get Switch with your friends, and then you go to Best Buy and get some DVDs.
I'm sure, Alex, that's what you love to do when you've earned your living in DFS. You want to definitely go out and mingle with the people instead of just paying $5 more on Amazon.
Well, the great thing is you can trample people on Black Friday and no one even notices.
that's a contrarian take. I'll back you up with one, and we could move on to the NFL stuff. I find it frustrating that people on social media rant against cranberry sauce so much. I don't want cranberry sauce year round, but I feel like cranberry sauce with stuffing and turkey is a perfect blend that I want to have on just that one day. And then I'm happy to let cranberry go about its life, helping people cure UTIs or mixing with vodka. But like for that one day, I just want to eat the canned cranberry with stuffing. And I think it's bullshit that people are really mad at cranberry and hating on cranberry. So it's unfair to cranberry. So that's all. It's my take.
I just am disappointed with the fact that they don't add more sugar to canned cranberry. It's just not sweet enough.
I think it's plenty sweet. And you want a little bit of bitter. You want a little bit of sweetness and bitterness. I think that's what the cranberry gives you. And, health benefits, oxidizing. That's really all that matters. I don't know, cranberry sauce. Just be nice to cranberry sauce and ham. People on social media mean to ham too. I don't like it. Cranberry sauce is awful. Shame on you, California cool. There we go. Those are some contrarian takes. Just get us in the mood here. We'll do NFL stuff. Before we get to the NFL stuff, we have that promo code Contrary for 1 week free of all of our features at Awesemo.com. We're also, because it's Awesemo's favorite holiday, we have a Black Friday deal and a Cyber Monday deal going all weekend. You can get 12 months for the price of 10 on any of our all-access passes for the year. It's the best savings we've had, $120 in savings if you get that one. It's code CYBERYEAR on Awesemo.com. You get 1 year's worth of stuff for every sport. We've had a lot of sports, which you don't talk about on here, NHL, NBA, which people are winning a lot of money with. So go use that code CYBERYEAR. And if you want to do a little lower commitment thing, you're not a commitment guy, you're more of a Tinder DFS player, go with code CYBERMONTH, 50% off the monthly membership. Again, these are the best deals we'll have. They're straight from Awesemo, straight from his love of Black Friday. So go check them out now on Awesemo.com. Alex, what are we doing overall? What are you viewing the slate? Because this is a slate with no Saints, no Rams, no Chiefs. They're all popular guys, both popular guys to play and to leverage against. So what would you say is the one spot you're eyeing the most this week as a comp to those?
Yeah, I mean, not only are there no Saints, Rams, or Chiefs, but there's no Alex Smith. So I'm really at a loss on how to approach this slate.
Poor
But I
Alex
do have some good ideas. Although there aren't any huge team totals, I think there's some really good value plays and maybe some spots that are going overlooked. I don't want to lead off with my most contrarian takes right from the get-go. So we can go game by game and just talk about some of those.
Okay, so let's talk about one which seems to have the most ownership. People who seem to want to go towards Andrew Luck, Marlon Mack, and T.Y. Hilton, all expected to be the highest owned guys at their positions. I guess let's talk about the football side of this first, Evan. How do you feel about the Dolphins-Colts matchup? Is there anything that jumps out to you as being noteworthy?
No, I just think the Colts are going to crush them. I mean, Dolphins suck. Dolphins just suck. They suck. I mean, they can't stop the run. They can't rush the passer. They can't pass protect. They play Frank Gore over Kenyon Drake. Ryan Tannehill, I'm worried that they're rushing him back. He admitted that he's still having pain in his throwing arm. And they've made bad medical decisions with regard to Ryan Tannehill before. He tore his ACL. He didn't have surgery. I don't know if that's necessarily the team making that decision, but maybe it was like Ryan Tannehill's camp or something. But I just, I talked to Dr. Chow at Pro Football Doc about this, and he's like, he doesn't think that Ryan Tannehill is 100%. So I think Colts defense is in play. Ty should get loose again. Luck is unstoppable. No one even puts a finger on him, in the pocket. Like, he's got the best pass protection in the league. I mean, it's just, Marlon Mack, I think, is a great play. I mean, they should be able to drop 40 on the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins are terrible. Trash.
Interesting. How do you feel about it, Alex?
I'm actually a little bit more bullish on Ryan Tannehill, especially thrown to my boy, Devontae Parker.
Stop.
But the reason why is because Brock Osweiler hasn't been that bad this year. He's averaged 7 yards per attempt. He has a 1.5 touchdown to interception ratio. So I'm really thinking they're bringing Tannehill back. just because I think he gives them a better shot to win, which is significant enough for me to give some shots to this game to the Dolphins side. I think that if he's anywhere near full strength, one thing that I like about this stack is the fact that Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson are out. So that makes the rotation a lot more predictable. I think Kenny Stills, Amendola, and Parker are going to get more work than average. Parker is probably the least reliable with the highest upside. So I think there's some potential there. And especially like if you're going with a lock stack to run it back with a guy like Amendola, who in a game where they're trailing is going to have a ton of catches probably.
Yeah, I think Amendola jumps out to me for the reasons that Evan talked about last week with the Colts D and allowing kind of things underneath. I think Amendola would be the guy who fits that bill. But I think the chemistry with Tannehill and Stills is kind of interesting. I mean, Stills is pretty much ignored by Brock, both I think as a function of Brock's fear to throw it deep and just not having that rapport. But I think having Tannehill back could give Stills a bit of a boost. I wouldn't want a ton of Stills or Amendola, but I guess more Amendola than Stills. But it seems like there's something interesting there. Probably not worth a Tannehill stack, though, I guess. I don't know. Evan, any thoughts on the Amendola play?
Don't play guys with injured quarterbacks.
Ooh, okay. So no Amendola. So you're really off on Tannehill. You think it might be a disaster?
I actually would like Amendola if Osweiler was playing. I mean, Osweiler targeted the crap out of him. You know, you go back and look at like earlier in the season, Amendola wasn't getting as many targets with Tannehill in there. I don't know. I mean, you know, crazy stuff happens, but I think the Dolphins are awful. I'm looking at the lines to see if there's been any line movement in favor of the Dolphins because I thought actually at one point that there had been, but I don't know. It just seems like a major mismatch to me. But you know, hey, you know, I could be wrong.
Hey, that's football. We never know how it's going
Right.
to break, but it seems like there's a lot of bad juju on the Tannehill side. So it's good to know. I definitely didn't know that he was that hurt. Like I assumed that if they're bringing him back, he's good to go. They have enough money invested in him still, I think, where I wouldn't want to rush him back. But it's Ryan Tannehill. Probably it's probably good to get this Tannehill era over with in Miami. I think that might be the approach. Let's talk about another game with some shootout potential. San Francisco at Tampa Bay. And this is the main slate debut of Nick Mullins' Mania. Nick Mullins, the guy who I've had to cover for our showdown videos for Osmo.com a couple times. So I think a lot of people might not be aware of him, but he's looked competent, maybe not great. I guess before we talk about kind of the plays here, Evan, what are your thoughts on Nick Mullins so far in his 2 NFL starts?
You know, what we usually see from guys that like are just career backups are like they may have some early success, you know, in the small sample size, and then when the sample size starts to grow, they kind of get exposed for a number of reasons. Number one, they're playing more and they're not very good. Number two, there's more tape on them for defensive coordinators, you know, figure out their weaknesses. You know, their own coaches reach a point where they can't like mask the players' weaknesses, you know, to a great extent anymore. And so that would be my concern because he was really good in the first game against the Raiders, and then he wasn't as good in the second game. So against the Giants. So is this, you know, starting to become a trend? You know, it was like that with CJ Beathard. CJ Beathard was, I mean, he played pretty well there for a minute, you know, but then the more he played, the more his weaknesses got exposed. Like the dude just has no pocket awareness, you know, and you know, they were able to have short-term success, but not sustained success. So that would be my concern. I mean, you love the defense that he's playing against. You know, you believe in his coach. You know, he has been fairly productive to this point, although he was again much more productive in the first game than in the second game. So, you know, I like he's real cheap. I mean, 6,000 on FanDuel for a quarterback playing against the Buccaneers. You know, that's really enticing. I wouldn't predict that he would get benched. I wouldn't predict that he would get benched, but like I think that there's like a small chance of that. You know, if he plays poorly, like they go back to Beathard. You know, very small chance, but I think it's definitely, you know, we want to think of like, hey, if we're going to do that, we're going to make this play. Like, let's think of how it could go wrong too, you know? So that's, you know, something that has crossed my mind, But I mean, again, 6,000 or what, I don't know what's he on DK, probably like the minimum for a starting quarterback against the Buccaneers. That's always going to at very least catch your eye.
He's actually a little more pricey on DK relative to some of the other guys. Like you have Josh McCown at 4,300, Nick Mullins is at 5,400, so not quite as much of a savings there. But it's an interesting. I think that's an interesting thought on FanDuel if he is that cheap. I think that might be a more compelling play. I don't mind him as a player overall. But Alex, we have some chalky players on both sides here. Not chalky, but just some ownership on Jameis, George Kittle, Cameron Brate, and Matt Breida. Which side do you find you would be more interested in, Alex, or are you trying to game stack this game at all?
So I think it's not my favorite stack of the week, but I think you can do a Mullen stack. As Evan's saying, he's probably not gonna have continued success and as good as his season average is at this point. But the 49ers quarterbacks on average over the season have all performed pretty well. Something that the pieces are in place that he can have success, especially if it's just a GPP play. I think Evan's point about him potentially getting benched is really important because we've seen that with Tampa Bay where they have two quarterbacks where it's not really clear who the better one is. San Francisco, same situation. If Mullen has a bad start, I'm sure he won't play the second half. But in a GPP, you're not as worried about that because you're really just hoping if he has a bad first half, what happens in the second half is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think Rick Batarshia, boy, sorry, buddy, for butchering that if I did, in the YouTube chat is saying that the Bucs have so many defensive injuries. Nick Chubb and Duke went nuts last week. O-line strength is similar from San Francisco to Cleveland. Scheme is arguably better in San Francisco. I actually agree with what he's saying there. I'm much more into Matt Breida than I am Mullins. I think Mullins is not as bad as I think you guys maybe do. And that might be because I've had to spend so much time with him on showdown slates. I think he's good enough to be a vessel for Kittle having a decent day. Or Marquise Goodwin, or even Kendrick Bourne, who's had the most air yards over the last 3 weeks for the Niners. I think one of those guys is probably in for a decent day. I'm not as crazy about the Mullins stack, but I think Breida is a fantastic play. What do you think about Breida, Evan? Because he's been kind of looking good since he was all banged up.
He'd be the dude I'd look at. For sure. I mean, Buccaneers played pretty good run defense early in the year. Not happening anymore. They're without Quan Alexander and Levante David. Gerald McCoy coming back has not really helped turn around their defense. So Breida got that, kind of like the mini bye from the Thursday game through the Monday game, and they just shredded the Giants. Because he was dealing with like high ankle sprain. He had been playing through a high ankle sprain. So he had that little respite, and then he crushed it, and then he had an actual bye, and now he's coming off the actual bye. Talked to Dr. Chow about this too. This is the healthiest that Matt Breida has been all year. He entered the season with a shoulder injury, dealt with a knee, then he had the high ankle sprain, then he aggravated the high ankle sprain. So this is the healthiest that he has been all season. They have one of the best run blocking lines in the NFL. And so, Breida would be the guy that I would look at personally. I don't think that Nick Mullins is like terrible, by any means, but they have nothing invested in him. He was an undrafted dude, was on the practice squad last year, they have nothing, invested in him. So, they have more invested in CJ Beathard. They used a 3rd round pick on CJ Beathard. So at some point, like I think that they would have no problem just going back to CJ Beathard if something went wrong with Nick Mullins. Again, he's playing the friggin' Buccaneers. Nothing should go wrong, right? But again, crazy things happen in the NFL. And I did just look up the line on the Dolphins Colts game. It has moved actually kind of significantly in the Dolphins direction. It opened at 10. And it's down to like 7.5 in some points. So like a 2.5 point line move. Just wanted to note that.
Huh. Team Tannehill coming through big.
Team Tannehill, yeah.
Finally, the Ryan Hive is paying off. Oh God, it's interesting to note though. What about the Bucs side, Alex? How about we have Jameis returning to the lineup? Another guy. If we want to talk about people getting pulled in the second half because they're just shitting the bed repeatedly in frustrating ways, that is the Bucs QB situation. How are you feeling about Jameis and potential targets on his side?
So I think that as far as overall projection, he's very solid, just like Bucs every week. They've gotten the most yards of any team in the NFL, I heard. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, the problem is that the players on the team are just so expensive. If I'm looking at the DraftKings salaries, Deshaun Jackson's 4,900. He's probably the one that I consider the most. Mike Evans is 7,700, which that's approaching like the highest salaried players on the whole slate. There's just other players I like better at that price range. Cameron Braid, 3,600 seems pretty playable. I have him as a C value because I just don't think he's going to get the same usage or target share that OJ Howard had, even though he's going to get some of those snaps. So when I'm seeing him being super popular, I know there's like a narrative with Jameis Winston and Bray that might make me want to look elsewhere.
Evan, what do you think about Jameis's prospects here? And in particular, Mike Evans, who's going to probably see some Richard Sherman, who's been playing at a pretty high level this year. Would you have any interest in that side?
Yeah, if you just like look at the exact areas on the field where Mike Evans runs his routes, he's 64% of the time away from Richard Sherman's side. And Richard Sherman is 98% left cornerback. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. With Jameis, I don't think he's going to get benched. I mean, I think it's really unlikely. It might happen next week, like if he plays bad this week and then he starts off bad next week. But I think he's going to get the full game here. My conundrum is Jameis Winston versus Lamar Jackson. They're like the same price on FanDuel, and I'm going to have to, decide between them. But yeah, I mean, I like Mike Evans on FanDuel. His price is better on FanDuel, I think, relatively speaking, than it is on DK at 7,900. He's not, he's not really like a bankable cash game play. I think he's like usually he's definitely a guy that you want to play in tournaments. Cameron Brate, like, you go back and look at OJ Howard has missed time. He missed time last year, and Cameron Brate didn't do anything in those games when OJ Howard, missed time. And Jameis Winston was actually playing well late in the season, and Cameron Brate and OJ Howard was out, and Cameron Brate didn't do anything. So I hate playing Cameron Brate, but I think I'm gonna play him because because everyone's gonna play him, number one. Just from a cash game standpoint. But I would really try to look elsewhere in tournaments. I wouldn't play Cameron Brate in tournaments.
That seems fair. Also, one quick note from our guy, Don Harris, in the YouTube chat. For fans of narrative, Breida is playing at his home and his parents will be there. So everybody plays harder in front of their parents. Matt Breida, lock him in for 200 yards. That's right. That's how that works, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, haven't you ever played a game in front of your parents? You just get extra stuck because you love them so much.
Yeah, a lot of my games in high school were spent on the sideline, but I'm sure they were really rooting for me to get out there. And if I did, I would have had a 200-yard game, no problem. Let's talk about a guy that Evan just mentioned. Not much ownership expected here, actually less than I would have thought. But Evan, I saw you on Twitter talking about Lamar Jackson. You just brought him up now. He's picking up another start versus the Raiders. A team is just giving up an asinine amount of passing scores, which didn't help out Josh Rosen enough last week, but that's neither here nor there. How are you feeling about Lamar this week? You're very bullish on him, it seems, from Twitter. And how do you also feel about Gus the Bus, stealing Jerome Bettis' nickname?
Yeah, Gus the Bus. Well, he's risky. I mean, he's definitely, not a lock. Alex Collins was full practice on Friday. I mean, he's going to be out there. And they had 4 running backs active last week. They had Gus the Bus. They had Alex Collins. They had Ty Montgomery and Buck Allen. So that's a little dicey, I mean, look, the matchup is great. They're huge home favorites. Gus played so well last week that, there's every reason to believe that they would stick with him. His price is good. But there's definitely some risk there, because of all the running back options that they have. Like say, hey, if he fumbles or something, like, Harbaugh is not cool about running backs that fumble at all. He's what's his target projection, like 1? I mean, he's not going to be catching passes. So there's absolutely a level of risk. He's probably not going to have a big game unless he scores a touchdown. You pretty much need a touchdown from him because you're not getting that supplementary production in the passing game from him. So I don't know. I mean, that's how I'm kind of viewing him. I'm playing him, plenty, but he's not a lock.
What about Lamar too? So this is a team that's giving up a ton of passing scores, and the Raiders, they it's a spot which has been beneficial to quarterbacks who throw it. I watched that game last week, Lamar Jackson. I thought he could have hit John Brown deep a fair amount of times, but it just seemed like he was either afraid of it or just wasn't game planned to even attempt that. Do you think he has any passing value at all versus the Raiders this week?
Yeah. Raiders can't rush the passer. He had 19 attempts. Like, it wasn't like he wasn't throwing. He had a ton of rushing.
Dunk, though.
A lot of dink and dunk. Yeah, a lot of Willie Snead. A lot of Willie Snead and Nick Boyle. Which that's not a lot of fun. But yeah, all that running that they did too is going to set up the pass in some ways. They will take shots downfield, no question, and it'll just be a matter of can they hit them, and usually teams hit them against the Raiders. So, look, that now there's the narrative that Lamar Jackson can't throw, and so he's motivated to show that he can throw. But on a 1-for-1 basis, I'm having trouble deciding between Lamar and Jameis Winston. I think it's close. I think that I think the play might be Winston, but I really want to play. Like, my heart says Lamar Jackson. This is such an awesome matchup for him. My goodness, man! You could not draw it up any better. Raiders come in, cross country, perfect letdown spot off the upset win in Arizona, coming across country for a 1 p.m. Eastern time game, slowest defense in the NFL, fastest quarterback in the NFL. You could not draw it up any better than this.
Alex, how do you feel about Lamar Jackson this week?
I think as an individual play, he's a great play, but the problem is, to win a tournament, you really need correlation in your lineups. And when you start looking for other players on the Ravens to put on your fantasy team, your team starts looking worse and worse. So I think that for GPPs, I would avoid Lamar Jackson just because you're looking for passing upside more for the wide receiver pairings. For cash games, anything goes with the quarterback. So I think Lamar Jackson is definitely in play there.
Interesting. So yeah, I think that makes sense. And I played Lamar Jackson. I had him stacked with a lot of John Brown last week, and I just watched. Lamar had a great game as far as running the ball, but it was so frustrating to see John Brown just look pretty open, look like he was going to get looks, and then just didn't get them. But I probably will try that again this week and hope for the best. But now that you've said that, Alex, I'm a little less enthusiastic. It hurts me. I want John Brown to be good with Lamar Jackson. I just want to see one of those 50-yard bombs to John Brown, and then Lamar Jackson will silence his critics for 1 week. That's what I'm hoping for.
Chris, never let anyone talk you out of your contrarian takes.
Thank you. I appreciate you empowering me, Alex. That's why I like working here. No opinion is dumb here at awesomemode.com. Here's another game that jumped out to me as one of the lower owned sides in our ownership projections, despite having a ton of scoring on the Vegas total. New England at the Jets. I saw, Evan, you tweeted some stuff about Tom Brady's handling the blitz and how the Jets blitz frequency might cause them some problems. How do you feel about the matchup breaking down, Evan?
Yeah, my first inclination was just this is a great, opportunity for the Patriots to just smash the Jets. The Jets in their last game, they gave up 40 to the Bills. That's embarrassing. At home too. It was at home. Mm-hmm. So I was but then I wanted to look for reasons why it might be wrong about, maybe the Patriots just smashing the Jets. So, try to play devil's advocate a little bit. But it does seem, it just, seems like what should and is likeliest to happen is the Patriots just kind of get it rolling, down the stretch here. We see them in the Super Bowl, and it starts with they come off their bye and just crush the Jets and, because everyone's down on them right now because in their last game, they got crushed by the Titans. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I was actually looking at, and I know that there was the stat about Tom Brady has the worst passer rating in NFL against the blitz, and Jets blitz a lot. What do you think about Brady as a GPP play?
Alex, what do you think?
I'm not crazy about the Patriots because the problem is that Gronk is expected to be back. That's going to decrease the amount of target share that Gordon and Edelman have. And then James White, he's 7,400 on DraftKings. That's the same price as like some of the top running backs in the league, and he just doesn't put up that kind of rushing production, especially with Sony Michel expected to be back. So I'm just seeing too many mouths to feed. I think there's a possibility that one of these guys has a really strong game. As far as points per dollar, the Patriots aren't the best place to look.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense than why they would be lower owned. I'll throw a contrarian take out there. Actually, no, first of all, I just want to say I like Julian Edelman a little bit because of the blitz issues, and I think he'd be a guy. James White, too, I would assume would get a little bit of a boost, but I think you're right. The rushing upside kind of going away completely with Sony Michel would put him off him. But I think Edelman's going to have more room to work with Gronk back, and I think I could see him having like a 9-catch, 100-plus yard day with hopefully with one touchdown, because I just think that's how they would probably want to move the ball in this matchup. But on the Jets side, the Pats pass D isn't that good. And I know the Jets got their dicks kicked in versus the Bills and all that, but maybe a Josh McCown, Robbie Anderson thing? Is that any consideration at all for you, Evan?
I just wish that I had more faith in Robbie Anderson's health. He's a deep threat trying to play through a high ankle sprain. That doesn't go well usually, so I mean, yeah, I wanted to like it at the beginning of the week, but then Robbie Anderson could barely practice, and there's a report that he's going to be limited in the game, so that's my thing. I mean, McCown is cheap. What'd you call him? What'd you say? He's 4,200?
4,300 on DK.
4,200? Jeez, man. 4,300. That's really cheap for a quarterback. I think he does play well. He was terrible against the Bills, but the Bills are kind of good on defense, and the Patriots are not. I think he'll play better. But, does he really have big upside? I don't know. He had some good games last year, but, it was when the offense was in a much better state than it is right now.
Any Jets interest at all for you, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. When you look at their wide receivers prices, you got Enunwa at 3,700, Curse at 3,500. And then, as you guys mentioned, Anderson is limited, so he's 3,600. But my point is that these guys aren't priced like top wide receiver options. I think Enunwa is probably my favorite, where if the game goes well for the Jets, he could far exceed his $3,700 price tag. And I also see him having some decent ownership on our ownership projections. So I think that other people are onto this too. So it's not really a contrarian play, but I think the price is a great one.
All right, so we covered that. Let's cover the other debacle in New York, or for the New York team, rather. We got the Giants going into a matchup with Philadelphia, also reeling. Some ownership expected on Josh Adams here, 17%. Also 17% for Zach Ertz and 17% for Saquon Barkley. The 17% boys in this game, and 20% Odell Beckham. So those are the chalkier plays on this game. Carson Wentz coming off of just a debacle of a performance versus New Orleans, where I thought he would have a decent day, but he got his ass kicked really in that matchup pretty much every way. Alex, what do you think about this matchup, and who are the guys that you're interested in?
I think, I mean, the Giants are always interesting because they got some really talented guys. This week, the prices are top dollar. Saquon Barkley at DraftKings is 9,100. Odell Beckham is 8,800. I think those are the two most expensive guys on the slate, probably. So I think while they're great plays, they're probably not the best on the slate. I have Saquon Barkley as a B value. Still love his upside. I think that he's on par with any other running back in the league. But you're also paying top dollar. And then Odell Beckham I have as a C value. I'm not as crazy about the $8,800 price tag. The team total versus Philadelphia is only around 20. So as a team, they're not really projected to have a ton of production. So I don't think these guys are gonna get touchdowns more than one touchdown very often here, and I think that that kind of limits their appeal this week at their price tags.
What do you think about the game, Evan?
Yeah, I like the game. I think that both of these defenses are very, very beatable. Number one, I think that it's a great bounce back spot for the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles, they need to get their shit together. They lost at at home against Dallas, coming off their bye. I mean, they could not afford to lose that game. Like, what is a Sunday night? There was a Sunday night game.
Yep.
Man, I mean, and no one saw that coming. Like, that was, the Cowboys were viewed very differently then than they are viewed right now. So, and then the Eagles just got crushed by the Saints. They're
every
desperate.
Facet of the game.
Every facet of the game. I mean, just an absolute beatdown. But I think that they are likely to bounce back. They could still like win the division. I mean, it's not, it's still very like possible that they could win the division. I mean, they're 4-6. The Cowboys at 6-5 are first in the division. So yeah, so they could get back to 5-6 this week. And I mean, I think that they're likely to bounce back, especially like Ertz. I think that I was surprised that his ownership was that high because I know he's expensive, but I think he's really, really likely to bounce back and have a big game.
It's tight end. I think it's such a wasteland that people are just going to lock in Ertz and hope that it works out. Because I mean, the alternative in terms of ownership is Cameron Brate, and we all know we talked about that before. But that's sort of a risky spot, or maybe not a high upside spot potentially. But yeah, I want to believe the Eagles bounce back here. I liked them last week, and I think it grades out similarly. I think people have really undervalued Alshon Jeffrey all year, and he's had a pretty good year for the most part. Golden Tate too seemed like he was getting more involved in the offense last week, even though that game got away from them a million different ways. I think it's interesting here, but I agree with Alex. The prices on the Giants side are kind of tough to pay, even on a slate like this. But maybe that's the value. I don't know, but if they're highly owned, maybe not. It's a weird game, though. It seems like a weird game to me, which could be trappy. Let's see. Alex, what other under-the-radar spots are you looking at?
First of all, I'd say the Eagles are definitely one of my favorite spots for a team stack here. Ertz is a value in my rankings. Jeffrey, Tate, and Aguilar are all Bs, as well as Josh Adams. So I think prices are right on this team. I think it'll be popular too. So that'll definitely be a direction I'm going.
Yeah, Josh Adams came through last week for somebody's contrarian running back pick. I don't know who, some handsome guy.
Yeah, well, I can't think of any handsome guy on this stream. So
fair enough. You win that round.
Well, one spot I like this week is Andy Dalton facing the Browns. I think that he throws the ball a ton, first of all, and you have Tyler Boyd. AJ Green is doubtful, so Boyd should see number one receiver kind of workload. So I think that's definitely a direction I'm going to be going this week. Especially the matchup is pretty good. The team total is around 25. So I think the potential is there for a really solid performance, and the ownership is pretty low this week. So that's definitely an appealing combination for me.
Who would you run it back with on Cleveland side?
So Cleveland, I have I know Nick Chubb is popular this week. David Njoku has been someone who has not lived up to expectations, but I think his price has gone down to 3,800, so that's pretty easy to stomach. And then Jarvis Landry is my favorite play on the team at 5,900. He just gets so many targets, especially on DraftKings. I think that PPR really makes a difference for him, and I have him as a value.
Evan,
what do you think about the Battle of Ohio with Cleveland and Cincinnati?
Oh man, I hate Dalton this week. I mean, it's just awesome. You're crazy. I mean, he's been really doing nothing like with AJ Green. I do like Njoku though. I would rather play Njoku than Cameron Brate if I can find that extra little bit of salary. Like on FanDuel, I think it's 700 different. The difference is 700. Yeah, because Cameron Brate is 4,400 and Njoku is 5,100. I'd much rather get up to Njoku. He hasn't been as good recently. He was rolling there with Baker Mayfield for a while. I mean, and if you just look at all of Baker Mayfield's starts, Njoku has 50 plus yards and or a touchdown in 5 of those 7. It's just that he had the one game where he didn't even get a target the whole game. And then he came back and he had over 50 yards in the second, right after that. And then in the last game before their bye, He had like one catch for 18 yards. No one had more than like 6 targets in that game on the entire team. Chubb just ran wild, and Baker was just super efficient, and they didn't have to throw the ball. Like, no one in the pass catcher core was really good in that last game before the bye. So, there are kind of like explanations for why David Njoku has not been, as great lately. But I think he's an awesome play. Love attacking like the Bengals defense in general. The Bengals defense is real bad. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you come up with the idea that like Andy Dalton has upside here?
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it's the volume thing. I think that first of all, Cincinnati is favored to win the game, which means that they should have a pretty good percentage of the plays. And then it's just the prices of the guys around him that really make me want to go for the game stack. So Tyler Boyd is $6K. That's a pretty big discount over the previous weeks. And then you got John Ross at 4,100, CJ Uzomah at 3,300. Those are both playable. And when you have a bunch of playable receivers, that makes the whole stack pretty good usually. So that's what I'm thinking there.
It might be a case of numbers versus the eye test thing, and I think that's an interesting little flag to plant there. But yeah, Dalton. I mean, Alex, you mentioned this. I think about your general approach, where if you find 2 guys that are decently owned in a stack, but the quarterback isn't, that's something to exploit. And Dalton is projected for under 3% ownership, while Boyd is projected for almost 14%. So it does fit that criteria.
Yeah, I was really rooting for you last weekend. I saw Josh Rosen had a couple of first quarter touchdowns. I thought, man,
slowed down a bit after that.
Chris gets that fuck you money, but I guess we'll have to keep rostering him.
I know it hurts because my biggest fear is this is the week that he goes off, because it makes no sense that he would go off versus the Chargers team is rolling. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the Cardinals in a little bit, but this would be like, just knowing how it goes, this would be a week he's going to have a stupid game, and he's just tanked like 3 big, well, not tanked, but been serviceable in 3 big spots. Stupid Josh Rosen, bastard. One thing to note on Cleveland side before we leave this game, Duke Johnson only 3% ownership compared to 20% for Nick Chubb projected. I think it's a pretty interesting spot to leverage. Duke Johnson could get more involved here. Cincinnati's defense, according to DVOA, allowing pass catchers a 24% boost, pass catching running backs rather, a 24% boost. So I think Duke's interesting to me as a pivot to Chubb being a borderline chalky play. Let's talk about Josh Rosen's games. As we mentioned there, we have some chalky plays on the Chargers side here. Melvin Gordon, who is currently questionable with a 22% projected. Keenan Allen, 17% ownership projected. Alex, any interest in this Chargers side versus the Cardinals team? And a pretty steep team total differential there.
So I think that my interest is mainly in Melvin Gordon. The price is high, but the spot being such a big favorite is really appealing. So I think that he's a great play this week, although not my favorite.
Evan, what do you think about the Cardinals passing offense, or just their offense's chance versus the Chargers right now with how they're rolling defensively?
I think that the way to attack the Chargers is with the running game. And what is David Johnson's projected ownership?
10% right now.
Yeah, that's kind of low. I mean, for a dude who's got 20-plus touches in every game since they changed their OCs, who's been playing really, really well. I mean, he was awesome last week, and he had a 57-yard touchdown run called back due to a holding penalty on frickin' Ricky Seals-Jones, who's just the bane of any DFS player's existence. Not even just when you play Ricky Seals-Jones, just when he's out there and costing your dude fantasy points. I mean, what is that? What's a 57-yard? How many points is that? Almost 12 fantasy points. Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, I mean, I like the Chargers. They lost Denzel Perryman last week, good inside linebacker, and then this past week they lost Corey Legit, defensive tackle for the season. So those are 2 pretty significant injuries, like up the middle of their defense. And, David Johnson is a guy that you don't really need, positive game script always for him because he can really hurt you in the passing game too, And then, no, I wanted to talk about the Melvin Gordon situation because he's questionable.
Mm-hmm.
And, Levitan had the quote from Anthony Lynn, the Chargers head coach, and it was very non-committal on whether Melvin Gordon will play. So, if he's out, Austin Eckler is like, I mean, and no one's going to play him because no one late swaps. Some people do, but not very many. And no one's going to have him on their initial team, and it's kind of difficult to do it. Like you have to set it up, you have to set it up in advance. You have to kind of, give yourself the room. I think that might be one of the keys to the slate is setting up your lineup so that, hey, if Melvin Gordon is out, we are playing Austin Eckler, and I know that, people will, and other reasons that people will not play him is because kind of in that same price range, there are dudes like Marlon Mack and Breida and, just guys that people know are going to be in that lead role, as the initial games lock. And then also people will look at, hey, that week 7 game where Melvin Gordon was out, Austin Eckler wasn't that tight, in fantasy. He had 12 points or something, but yeah, it was a game in London. Yeah. And, but the reason that he didn't have that many points is because they ran 44 plays in that game, 44 plays. That's 20 below normal, and it was because they were playing the Titans who, kind of controlled the game with their running game, and it was a slow paced game. And when the Chargers had the ball, they threw touchdown bombs to dudes, and, their offense was off the field. So, but hey, if they would have played 64 plays, like normal, then, and then you just extrapolate Austin Eckler's, fantasy points per snap, he gets 16 points, right? Yeah. And he's going to be way better, and this is a better matchup and everything, so man, he's going to be low owned. He's going to be a high floor. He played 42 of the 44 snaps in that game. He's good in the passing game. I mean, man, if Melvin Gordon is out, Austin Eckler, put him on every damn team, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that week 7 game, because that was definitely why I was maybe Eckler, but maybe we'll still cover, kind of mitigate the exposure a little bit there. But I think all the reasons you say why that's a bit of an aberration makes sense. Is there any concern, though, that maybe that's just their approach when Gordon goes out, is just you load up on Rivers then, because he's going to throw it way more than he might otherwise?
No, they just didn't have the ball in the game. They just did not have the ball. That was the problem. But yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I mean, I don't think that's going to be an issue. They didn't play any other running backs. I mean, I think Justin Jackson, the number 2, yeah, I think he played 1 snap in the game. So, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? What do you think, Osimo?
I think it's a good strategy. I mean, it starts at 4 p.m., so people have already locked in their lineups. And I think there's a decent pivot. Well, I haven't looked at the wideouts. You could put Eckler in flex, but Frank Gore is 100 less than Eckler. Not anyone that's going to be really exciting, but he's going to be on the field a lot. Not going to kill your lineup. So I think that could be a good strategy to have Eckler, and then if Gordon is out, you're in a huge spot. But if he's in, it's an okay spot with Gore, or you could just run with Eckler and hope that Gordon is limited.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting approach there. So yeah, something to keep in mind for people, if you could pay attention to your lineups closer to 4 o'clock, could be an interesting way to leverage the field a little bit there. Let's talk about a couple more chalky spots, Carolina and Seattle. Carolina expected, or I guess maybe not expected. Devin Funchess is doubtful, so probably more inclined than not that he's going to not play. DJ Moore currently projected for 20% ownership in this game. Chalk DJ Moore. Alex, how do you feel about it?
I need to update my projections here. I had Funchess in. I gotta keep up. Been spending too much time eating turkey.
And hopefully cranberry
I
sauce.
mean, if he's out, that opens up a lot of opportunity. Actually, I might be more inclined to go to Greg Olsen than DJ Moore. He's been getting a lot of work recently, especially if the ownership is higher on Moore. And then I'd probably finish my stack off with McCaffrey. I think that he's always a great play just because he gets so much usage in the running and passing game. So I think that is a pretty good, nice stack there.
Evan, what do you think about the Panthers offense with Moore taking over the wide receiver 1 role with Funchess probably out?
Yeah, I think that 20% is too low for DJ Moore. I think he should be higher than that. I like this game to maybe be a shootout. I was just looking at the total. 47. Yeah, it hasn't really moved. It's at 47. I mean, I think it can be like a big time shootout. I mean, the Seahawks defense is okay. You know, the Panthers defense is terrible, and they blitz a ton. And they have the 5th highest blitz rate in the NFL. Russell Wilson has the best passer rating against the blitz in the NFL. The Panthers have given up double-digit touchdown passes or 2 or more touchdown passes in 9 straight games. They don't rush the passer. You know, they're not particularly good against the run. They're not a good defense. The Panthers do not have a good defense this year. And I think that, you know, Seattle can kind of do what they want against Carolina from both a passing and running standpoint. And then my concern with Cam would be that he got nicked up last week, and he didn't run. He did continue. He did stay in the game. I think he missed like 1 snap, and then he came back in, and their offense continued to roll. But that would be my concern. Are we going to get him running? And then I love the way that the receivers. I did not like the way that Funchess matched up against the big Seahawks receiver cornerbacks. Trey Flowers, he's 6'3". Shaq Griffin is like 6'1", 6'2". So I mean, the Seahawks have like big corners. You know, they really have always had big corners, and I didn't like the way that it matched up for Devin Funchess. But like these little fast, you know, run after catch studs like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. You know, these guys are going to give the Seahawks cornerbacks more problems. I think Curtis Samuel is a real interesting tournament play. 7 targets last week, season high. You know, using him more like an actual receiver than just a gadget dude. You know, Torrey Smith is coming back, it looks like, but he could be limited, and he hasn't been in there in a while. You know, so I think DJ Moore is a. I mean, I'm playing him in cash for sure, and then Curtis Samuel I think is real interesting in tournaments. He's real fast. I mean, he ran like 4.31 coming out of Ohio State. He's real fast.
It's interesting because like I'm surprised you're as in a DJ Moore because so one thing that stands out to me is a couple times this year we've had situations where like a top wide receiver either gets traded or goes out, and then people have kind of flocked to the guy filling in, and it's been a bad spot more often than not. And I think that's sort of people underrating how an offense functions kind of like a circulatory system in like a human body, where if you take part of it out, all of a sudden the flow kind of gets disrupted and things break down in different ways. So like that's what worries me a little bit about DJ Moore, especially coming off a monster game. But it's interesting to note about the big cornerbacks and stuff. Alex, I guess, how are you approaching this one? And also the Seattle side. Do you have any exposure there if you were game stacking?
I think Carolina's going to be a good stack. Now that I'm looking into it more, I think that DJ Moore is going to be in line for pretty good targets. I think that Olsen also, I think, very playable. And then for Seattle, no one's really popping up in my crunches a lot. But I do like the defense. They're only priced at 2,200 on DraftKings, which is kind of absurd. But other than that, all the players are kind of priced too high for me to be really interested in the Seahawks side.
Interesting. Okay, I think the running game.
We should talk about because Baldwin might not play. Baldwin,
really? Okay.
He did not practice all week.
So
what?
Tyler Lockett?
Yeah, Lockett, and Lockett moves into the slot when Baldwin is out, and slot receivers have been crushing Carolina. Like Tyler Boyd had a monster game against him, Adam Humphries, all these different little slot receivers. And we know that Lockett has like big playability too, so, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And David Moore too, a ton of air yards last 3 weeks. A bit more of a gadgety player than Lockett is, ironically, because Lockett used to be the gadget player. But yeah, I think if Baldwin's out, then yeah, I think that makes Lockett a little more interesting. And I think Moore is a good enough player to at least draw attention away where it's not like they could key in on Lockett in any way, if they're even capable of it, given all the things that you mentioned about the Carolina defense. The fantasy game of the week, let's talk about, real fast, Jaguars at Bills. Anybody at all playable here, Alex?
Yeah. So, James O'Shaughnessy is 2,600. I mean, not a name that's gonna get you real excited, but I think he's in play. And then the defense. Oh, and of course, LaShawn McCoy. That'd probably be my play of the game, just because
Dude, 4,200 for LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, I mean, like they must not watch last week's game because he was like dominating that game. It just showed that he got 27.8, 26 rushing attempts. I mean, if the Bills find themselves in the game at all, he's gonna be in line for another huge performance, probably way over exceeding his salary.
Bills are gonna win this game.
Wow, that's a hot take. What makes you think that?
Jags have lost like 7 in a row. I mean, they just had like their best game all year and then blew it at the end. And now they got to go play in Buffalo in late November. Like they're not even going to show up. They're not getting off the plane. Bills are going to win this. And yeah, I mean, they're all like Florida dudes too. Like Bortles played at UCF. Jalen Ramsey played at Florida State. The line has moved toward the Bills. Let's see what it's at. Because the Jags opened as 4-point favorites. Jags opened as 4-point favorites. It's 3. It's down to 3. Probably won't move past that. But I like LaShawn McCoy and the Bills defense here. It's the lowest total game of the entire slate by like freaking 10 points. Bills can rush the passer. Jags have major problems on their O-line, man. I mean, they're starting Eric Flowers at left tackle. They lost their starting center, Brandon Linder, last week, or 2 weeks ago, and then last week they lost their starting right guard, AJ Cann. Bills can rush the passer. Yeah. I mean, you think the Jags are going to show up here? I don't. Why would they?
I think just playing Josh Allen, I think gives them at least a shot at doing something because, I mean, he'll turn it over, he'll get sacked. And I think that, like, to me, the Jags D isn't that bad. They're just not creating turnovers like they did last year. And I think that's that there's a trickle down where everything else is getting a little worse. But versus the Bills, like, I think they should be able to generate turnovers. I don't view it as much of a lock, but I get why you're saying it. They are, like, if anybody's going to phone it in, the Jags would see who would phone it in this week. It's tough. Banking on the Bills seems like a scary proposition in any reality.
It is. But man, 4,200. I mean, for LaShawn McCoy, like, what does he got to get? For him to kind of pay that back. Yeah,
that's fair. I think it's a valid point. And he's only 6.6% projected ownership for him right now on DK. So pretty low owned.
He's awesome. He's like the best tournament play ever, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you there. Not quite my favorite of the week, but I mean, I'm shocked given last week how he performed that he wouldn't be on people's radars in a big way. And Evan, you've convinced me. I gotta go book my tickets for New Jersey. Second bet on this game.
It's the only place in the world you could do it right now. All right, I want to do fade of the week, but first we should touch on one guy who's chalky. People in the YouTube chat have been asking. James Conner going to Denver, 21% projected ownership. People still trust in James Conner after a couple of down weeks. Alex, are you teetering towards playing him or fading him?
Won't play him. I think he's probably the top running back of the week as far as combining projection and value. I mean, the matchup with Pittsburgh should be favored pretty heavily here. And he gets work. He's been getting a lot of routes recently, which is definitely encouraging that if Pittsburgh's even behind the game, he still has a pretty good shot to make value.
Evan, any reasons to avoid James Conner this week?
No. I mean, I think he's a good play, good bounce back position. I mean, what happened with them last week, like when a team falls behind like that, like the Steelers did, it's not going to go well usually for a running back, so that, that explains why that happened. And the week before that, he was playing well against Carolina, but he got concussed, so if you're just looking at the box scores the last 2 weeks, you're like, what's going on here? But, shit happens.
That sums up DFS pretty well in general, actually. Yeah, no, I think that's all valid. And Connor, the ownership does worry me a little bit. I wish that people were a little more box score minded, and he'd be down to 10%, but 20% still fine enough, and still a little bit lower owned than some other guys. So that seems fair to me. Let's talk fade of the week. Alex, who would be your fade this time out?
This is a tough one because I'm probably going to end up playing this guy and winning $1 million this week. Well, one guy that's jumping out at me in my initial look is Nick Chubb. I know I didn't recommend him the week that he went out and got 2 touchdowns. But the thing with Chubb is that I just feel like running backs who don't catch passes aren't as good for fantasy. They just don't have as much variance. So I'm not crazy about picking him given the other options on the board, just having a lot more upside in that respect.
Evan, how about you? Who'd be your fade of the week?
Yeah, I think that like for the fade of the week kind of thing, like picking running backs who don't catch passes is like one of the best avenues to take, because the dudes have like a low floor, Shoot, I don't know here. Fade of the week. I'll do Cameron Brate. I hate Cameron Brate.
I was actually looking at Cameron Brate too. I think that's a pretty fair one. I was gonna go DJ Moore, and I think Evan, you talked me a little more into DJ Moore, but I'm still gonna say DJ Moore just because it's 20% ownership and how I fear that maybe the defense can stop him just enough and push it towards McCaffrey or Samuels or if Torrey Smith is in there, or Greg Olsen, like Alex mentioned. I think there's enough ways where it can go sideways on DJ Moore that he's worth at least having less than the field on.
Who another candidate for this I think would be Gus Edwards. Again, a guy who probably ain't going to catch any passes, and he's in that backfield with like 4 running backs active, and a lot of people are going to play him too. I'm probably going to play him, but he's definitely like way riskier than I think is perceived.
It's hard to avoid a guy when he gets the nickname the Bus, but I don't know that he earned that.
It's just fun to play him. Hey, we're trying to have fun too.
That's true. I want a guy who's going to steamroll dudes and just make me enjoy every moment instead of a stupid lost Sean McCoy who might have a great day, but he's kicked us all in the nards a couple times this year, I'm sure. Let's go with contrarian QB pick, Alex. Who would it be?
I gotta go with my pick from earlier, Andy Dalton, at 3% ownership. I just think he's going to pass the ball enough, and that the receivers on the team are priced well enough that I think that's a pretty good combination this week.
Actually, since we're talking QB real fast, and I think we kind of breezed by him, we've had this question asked a couple times. Do you have any Eli Manning take, Alex?
My take is just that the Giants players are too expensive this week, so I'm going to be looking elsewhere. It doesn't really have much to do with him as individual play, but also I'm not really liking the team total. It's not really jumping out at me, and then the prices are so high.
All right. Evan, contrarian QB pick, who would it be?
What are your ownership projections for Wentz and Brady?
Wentz, we currently have at 7.8% on DK. Brady, 4.6%.
Wow. Those guys are low.
Mm-hmm.
I guess quarterbacks never get that high, or they typically don't get that high. Who's the highest projected dude?
Luck right now at 16.4%.
Okay. I'll go Brady. I mean, why not? This is a good, no one's going to play him. He's got 4 touchdown upside. Gronk is back. He's got huge, positive splits with and without Gronk historically. This is the healthiest that the Patriots have been in many, many weeks. They're going to have, it's all hands on deck against the Jets. And shoot, the Jets in their last game gave up 40 to the Bills. So, they like, wow. I mean, I was watching that game live and I was like, wow, like no way Todd Bowles is going to survive this. But he somehow survived through the bye, But yeah, I'll go Tom Brady.
I'm just going to go with the guy I wrote down in advance, and I think we might have talked me off him a little bit with the Robbie Anderson stuff, but Josh McCown, you're my guy. Under 1% owned at 4,300 versus a Pats D that's giving up a ton of air yards per target. I just don't think the Pats D is that good. They don't get sacks. They give up deep passes. Like, I think he's going to have a game. This is a spot for him to have a game. I wish Anderson were healthy, though. That would be helpful.
I was thinking that game might be like a sneaky shootout. Jets, Patriots.
Mm-hmm. What's the totals don't back it up, but I agree.
No.
Yeah, the Pats D just isn't that good. Like, I think that's the main thing to me. And the Jets D is obviously can be beaten by the Pats offense. So a home game for the Jets too. I feel like they play the Pats pretty well at home, but the Bills thing does kind of throw you off the scent a little bit. Contrarian running back pick, Alex, who would it be?
I really like the chalk picks this week. But one contrarian running back I like is Jalen Richard. I just read on Fantasy Cruncher that Coach John Gruden compared Jalen Richard to Charlie Garner. I have no idea who that is, but he sounds like he's probably pretty good if he's getting compared to.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
Maybe Evan can educate me later on that, but. I think just in his role catching passes, he has a lot of promise each week, and he's only 3% on. And then last week he got 11 rushes, which is a huge increase. I think Doug Martin was injured or something, but just the potential for him to step into that role at some point is enough for me to think he's a pretty good GPP play this week.
Yeah, tough spot, but I guess that's the value in going there is the hope that he can somehow get past the tough defense and nobody will be on him. Only 3% ownership projected. Contrarian running back pick for you, Evan.
Yeah, on Friday there was a report that that Doug Martin was out, and then it was updated he's not out. He's playing. But that would have been awesome if Doug Martin would have been out. I mean, Jalen Richard probably gets like 14 to 18 touches. He still might. I mean, Doug Martin, I don't even think he played at all in the second half last week. So I like that pick. I mean, my guy is LaShawn McCoy. 4,200. What did you say? 6%? 6.6%?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. So I think Duke Johnson would be one. I don't want to, I don't want to take two guys. But I'm sort of taking two guys here. But Joe Mixon, we didn't talk about at all. I kind of think this game is going to be a running back heavy game on both sides. So I guess I'm directly going against you, Alex. This thing that works out so well to go against the guy who's won more money than I'll ever see playing DFS. But I think it could be, to me, seems like a traditional AFC North battle where I think the running games are going to have value. So I like Duke Johnson. And I think particularly as a pivot to Nick Chubb. But I also think Joe Mixon is just always undervalued. And I don't think he's going to be as affected by Andy Dalton's struggles as some of the other guys may be. So I like Joe Mixon too. So just the running game in that game. I like that. That's my contrarian pick. Contrarian wide receiver pick, Alex, to close us out.
I really like the chances of Kendrick Bourne this week. Pierre Garcon is out again. When he's been out in the past couple times, Bourne has seen a large majority of the snaps. Marquise Goodwin, he just doesn't really profile into the kind of guy who's going to get targeted a ton when another receiver's out. George Kittle is probably going to get the most targets on the team, but then I expect Bourne and Goodwin to be around tied for second, and I think that Mullins is good enough to make that into a decent fantasy performance to pay off Bourne's price tag of 3,900 at 1% ownership.
I like that one. And the air yards, I think I mentioned earlier, they do jump out with Bourne. Just getting a lot more than everybody else there, which you would think with Goodwin being a deep target that he would be picking up more, but it's been Bourne. And Kittle just running a lot after the catch. I think that's worth noting too. Evan, contrarian wide receiver pick.
Yeah, I'll go with Curtis Samuel. Season high 7 targets last week. You know, playing more like a receiver than a gadget guy. You know, no Funchess, and I really like the matchup against the Seahawks cornerbacks as we discussed.
Cool. And for me, I'll go Julian Edelman. I said it before. I just think it's a nice matchup for him. One where I feel like he can rack up a ton of catches, easily get a touchdown. And I think he might have a big day by the end of it all, which under 10% ownership, I would be happy with. So there we go. That's it for the show. Any parting words before I do my final spiel, Alex?
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks, Evan and Chris. You guys always have the best takes, best hot takes. And I can't believe I made it through the whole show without asking people to click that thumbs up below the video. I can't believe I gave away my picks for free without even getting this like. But if you can be gracious enough to give it to me now, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Tip your bartender, throw us a like, and make sure to take advantage of the promo codes we're offering for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Cyber Year will get you 12 months for the price of 10 with any all-access annual membership, and with the Cyber Month code, you'll get 50% off your first month. They're really good deals. You know, all the data that we reference here, the ownership projections we mentioned a ton, are in there, included in there, and access to all the sports, which, you know, Alex is good at a lot of sports. You may not know this. Very good at DFS. So go check that out now. Promo code CyberYear for 12 months for the price of 10. It's $120 in savings. And promo code CyberMonth for 50% off your first month of an all-access pass. And click that like button. Promo code Contrary if you want to do a free sample too, but pay instead. Just don't do free things. Just pay it. Give us money. We appreciate that. But we appreciate everybody who watches, whether you're paying or not. And we wish you the best of luck this week and hope you had a happy holiday. And good luck, everybody.